talking for just a moment about, there's a bunch of lawsuits out in here, and they all do different things. So it's important to know which one are which and what they do. So the first bucket we have is the class action. Now, this is all the people who have been injured in some way individually. So if you have persistent rash, if your property has been devalued in some way, if you have medical expenses or lost wages, that's where all of that goes. And that's our first bucket right there. The second bucket is the federal government. If you could have the next slide there. We'll have the next slide in just a second, and we'll talk about that. The third bucket is the state bucket. Now, the state bucket is in charge of natural resources, our costs of cleanup and response. Here's the federal bucket. Now, the federal government has announced that they have a settlement with Norfolk Southern. We were not part of that settlement. This is what the federal talks about: federal cost reimbursement, civil penalties for whatever they did, natural resource damage, the groundwater and surface water issues in private drinking water monitoring for 10 years, trying to remediate or repair local waterways. Many of you have heard about that it includes medical exams and mental health services paid for as part of the settlement. They're going to do a number of studies and assessments to look at what are the impacts on people's health. There are certain safety improvements for railroads that are part of this, and some changes on emergency preparedness and communication between the railroads and the government. So, where do we stand on each of these things? The class action, the individual thing, that has been proposed settlement. That's in front of the court. That's about $600 million. That is all of the individual people, all the individual families, the businesses that are part of that class. If you have questions about that, I am going to give you a phone number to call, because we weren't involved with that, and I have no information about it. 833-425. That number is 833-425-3400. Now, I've heard some people have said, the Attorney General doesn't like this settlement, I'm not going to join. The Attorney General has not analyzed this class action settlement. I have no advice for you except this: if you're not part of the class, if you opt out of it, you are on your own. I strongly urge you, if you have a claim, if you've been sick, if anybody in your family's been sick, if you have personal damages to you, this is the bucket you want to be part of. And this is the number. The class action has been certified by the court to include everybody every private individual who is damaged by a train wreck. And that's the lawsuit you want to be part of. The federal lawsuit has also tentatively been settled. That still has to be approved by the federal court as well. That includes these things and goes basically to the cleanup. There is a comment period where people are allowed to tell the court, I like the federal settlement, I don't like the federal settlement. That pretrial is in August. There is also a comment period with the federal DOJ. We asked for an extension on the comment period for the federal government because it was going to close like a couple of days after the National Transportation Safety Board, the investigators that haven't put out their report yet about why this happened. And I don't, for the life of me, know why they negotiated a settlement before they have seen the NTSB report. I certainly wasn't interested in doing that. But we asked for some additional time so that we can get that report, analyze it. Those comments are now due on August 2nd. Later in August, there's a court hearing. So today, we are welcoming any comments that you have about the federal government, because you'll help direct us whether we should object in court to the federal settlement with Norfolk Southern. The third bucket is the state lawsuit. Now, many of the claims that we brought, the federal government took over. They just have that right under federal law. But we still have some claims against Norfolk Southern, and I'm not ready to settle because we don't have the NTSB report. We don't have a lot of answers from discovery yet. And we'll learn more over the next month or two. And perhaps all of these settlements are good, and perhaps we will have our own settlement. But we're not ready to go there yet. We're also here today to let you tell us what did the federal government miss? What is the class action missing? What do you want the state to try to get? Quick explanation. There are some things that we can require them to pay if we win under the law. There's a lot of other things that they could agree to do in a settlement that if we go to court, we'll never get. And one of those, for example, might be a future catastrophic health fund for, what happens if 20 years from now, it turns out that there's, some kind of health problem that none of us see right now. Now, I don't have a guarantee that they're going to come to the table on that, but I do want you to know that's one of the things that's on the top of my list to try to arrange. That's the lay of the land of the three buckets. We're mostly talking about these two buckets today where the state of Ohio has some influence. And I'm done talking at you, and now it's your turn to talk to me. We're here today to listen to what you have to say, and I don't really like sitting up here, so I'm going to take my chair down here. And who wants to go first?
The point straight line, which is doing for the settlement. She's 0.93 on her family from the derailment and the burn. And what worries me is what you're saying. The later on the health care, because we're talking about a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old, plus my daughter, her husband, I'm 8 miles, I don't even worry about myself, even though we did get the effects. When they did the burn, I went to the doctors with like razor blade slices in my throat. And when they evacuated, they did not tell people how far. That upset me. Didn't know at the time, but they evacuated 1 by 2 mile. They don't tell Governor DeWine, they don't tell you guys, they don't tell anybody how far to leave. They just say, leave your homes.
Right.
You know?
So where did you go to?
So my family came to my house 8 miles away. You know, people went 4 miles away, 5 miles away. You know, they just knew they couldn't be in that 1 by 2 mile area. Nobody told them there was going to be this giant plume of phosgene and dioxins, you know, and it was going to stay down low and you're going to be breathing that in. I mean, you know how many people were exposed? And you're talking 20 miles now, I still think that's kind of a couple of house. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel, you know. I think more the concentration was closer, of course it was, you know. And the people that evacuated, most of them didn't evacuate far enough. So that evacuation didn't really save anybody.
Thank you.
I mean, that's the, you know, point. Another thing is you do have control over, I think, the agriculture. My daughter has chickens and eggs. She calls the Department of Agriculture. They say, eat your eggs. The crops in your area have been tested. False. EPA did not test people's gardens. So they're saying, since the crops were tested, your eggs are fine, we're not going to test the eggs. So she's told to feed her children the eggs, the chicken, everything, and we're not going to test them. Why not? You know, like people raise their own eggs around here and have been eating and baking with them. You know how many eggs, you know, so let's just say 16 to 20 chickens a lay, and how many you eat, you know? And those don't mean our children. Because people be allowed some type of testing done on these eggs. Why not? You could do that, you know?
Let me share a little bit of information with you that hasn't been in the press. One of the things that my office did right after this, not that I'm a fan of Ronald Reagan, trust but verify, right? So we hired a team of scientists at Youngstown State who did some independent testing of soil and water for us in preparation of litigation. And we wanted to make sure that we had good data, and if there were problems, we wanted to be able to identify that. After we heard a couple of, this isn't the first time I've heard this, a few days ago somebody brought to me the issue you're raising about gardens and locally grown food. Yeah, so we have roped our team back into that question and made an inquiry as well. What would it cost? What would it take? Is it justified to come in and do some additional testing on these things that, as far as I can tell, we've got some questions, don't have answers to them. So while I'm not the EPA, that's the governor, and the governor does ODNR and all that stuff, it is my job to find the truth and to get this lawsuit where it needs to be. And we hopefully will be able to get some answers back to the community from our Youngstown State team here fairly short order.
Government accountability just filed a petition with the EPA.
Yeah.
Because of these results done at the same lab, the EPA used it.
We got that finally, so thank you.
Filed Thursday, so. Thank you.
My name is Jamie Wallace, and I'm the president of the Unity Council here in East Palestine. We're just a small group of citizens that have done their own investigation. I've tried contacting your office, but I would love to give you some of the evidence that we have collected, both on the animals. EPA says it's fine to eat the animals. We're a large hunting community. No one tested those animals. You can't tell me those animals aren't drinking that creek water. We found frogs in the creek, you cook them, and they explode with chemicals. So that's one thing. So first I'll talk about the federal lawsuit. Some of my issues with that is 25 million community health fund, and it's kind of what you're saying. All these lawsuits are saying, okay, we'll study you, we'll, follow you along, but when they find the cancer, who takes care of that? And it's not if, it's when. You can talk to Dr. Collins from the University of California. She was very involved in the Gulf War syndrome and the multiple chemical exposure. The fact of the matter is there's no research, there's a gap in the research for multiple chemical exposure. When the EPA is testing for these limits, it's based on single chemical exposure. So they test that subject just to vinyl chloride to get that limit. So what happens when you're right below those limits of 50 different chemicals? No one knows. So, the fact that we're showing a lot of the same symptoms that our Gulf War vets showed, they ended up getting cancer, possibly doing something like the PAC Act, where you don't have to prove it because there's no research to prove it. If you were here at this time and you come down with one of these 20 symptoms, they just automatically assume a correlation. 25 million for a community health fund. You're talking about a 20-mile radius that enters 100,000 people. Like, how far does that really go? They give Norfolk Southern donated 25 million to build a new park in our community. To me, the $15 million fine, that's pocket change for them. What prevents them from this happening again? What makes them want to get stronger safety regulations? If now they know the cost of poisoning at least 4,700 people is $15 million fine. It also does nothing to address the fact that people are still being exposed. They just found another pocket of vinyl chloride. They dug it up, and when we asked the EPA, why didn't you tell anybody? Well, it's coming out in our newsletter. But we were being exposed. The fact of the matter is, even at lower levels, the more chemicals you're exposed to, the more sensitive you are to those chemicals. When I brought up what he had said to me about digging up the tracks, and there was, I asked why you weren't one track at a time. And he said, because you would not want to be exposed to that much soil at once. And in fact, when they did the other side, we're going to ask them to dig smaller increments and backfill it. So I said we were being exposed to vinyl chloride then. Everybody knew that. Did anybody in this room know when they were digging up those tracks you were actively being exposed to vinyl chloride? Yeah. I mean, we knew because our bodies told us. And that's my point. If there's no research, when do you start listening to the people? When do you start looking at a 2-year-old that's covered in a rash and saying that's not psychosomatic? The other issue is the indoor air testing. We've had bipartisan letters written by Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance asking them to test our indoor air. EPA flat out refuses to do it for 2 reasons. They tell me the outside air is fine. Their own webpage says indoor air can be 2 to 5 times more contaminated. My home was found to be contaminated by CTEH, the railroad company. He didn't even do testing. He saw moisture coming down my basement wall and said if that's creek water that puddles, it would off gas. Had I not followed my own instinct instead of listening to the EPA, I would not be standing here right now talking to you. They say it's unlikely there's vapor intrusion. You found vapor intrusion in my house last year, so how can you say it's unlikely? And these are the words the EPA plays with. Found formaldehyde. It wasn't being carried on the train was their official statement. To the lay person, they would think it's not related. It is a direct byproduct of vinyl chloride breaking down. So this lawsuit does nothing to make sure our homes are safe. It does nothing for current exposure. It does nothing for our long-term illnesses that we're going to come down with. So those are just, some of the things that I think we should really push is the indoor air testing for residents. At this point, if the EPA thinks there's nothing there, why wouldn't you just test 100 homes to shut us up? We've been screaming this since the beginning, and nobody is listening to it. So, I keep saying if one person hears us, the CDC came in and flat out said almost verbatim, you've all been exposed to chemicals, we know that. We don't know what to do about the chemicals in your body, but we can treat the cancer it causes. So why would the CDC say that if they're not expecting a cancer cluster? Why wasn't that all over the news? I mean, I have 47 immediate family members that live in the 1 mile zone. So when they said that, they weren't just talking about me, my daughter, my husband. Everybody that I've ever loved or cared about. I'm an American citizen. And if you would have told me pre-derailment this would ever happen, I'd call you a liar. I have an undergraduate degree in political science. I have a law degree. I have a master's degree. You know, when my husband said, what are we going to do when they lift this evacuation? I said, we're going to go home. If the EPA says it's fine, it's fine. That's what I learned in school. I learned my government protected me as a U.S. citizen. As soon as I pulled in my driveway and I couldn't breathe and, you know, my eyes are burning, lips are burning, my skin instantly starts breaking out, and I look over and see chemicals free flowing down my creek, I knew it wasn't safe. I didn't need to be a scientist. I didn't need to have an education. I didn't need anything to know that that wasn't safe. So I'm here asking you today to please at least get us testing of our homes, indoor air and residential soil, even if there's no risk. The PTSD that we've already been through and living in a home and tucking your baby in at night not knowing if your home's the reason why that child's getting sick, we deserve the truth and we deserve answers. Thank you.
You're right.
I live on State Road 170. Leslie Run parallels my property. It's less than 20 feet from my back door and 60 feet from my well. They have not cleaned any of it near my house, and they're telling us our water is safe. It's not, because there's benzene in my water, and the level just keeps going up. It's still, they say, at a safe level. But how do I know that it's safe here? Because we don't drink our water, and we haven't drank our water in over a year. What happens when I sign on in this, you know, this stupid lawsuit, class action suit, and the water then comes back that my well is contaminated? Then what do I do?
Has your well been tested?
Yeah, every month, but they came out the first 3 months, told me the first 2 months that the water was safe, there was nothing in it. The third month, when they called me, they said, well, your water's good now, there's no longer any vinyl chloride in it. No one told me the first 2 months that there was vinyl chloride in it in the first place. And we're drinking it at that point. So what happens in the long run when they don't fix the creek and it just keeps becoming contaminated? There is no wildlife in the creek beside my house, and I'm only 2 miles outside of town. And then yesterday, we're outside and we noticed the trees near the creek are all starting to die. These trees were alive last year, they were green, and all of a sudden they're all dead. There's something going on here. But they're not testing the water or the soil to tell us whether it's safe.
What's your address?
6009 State Route 170, East Palestine.
And I see the creek and dying trees as well.
You can pull into that and see them. The trees are on the far end. The creek parallels around my property in like it's like an L shape. But the trees down at the end are starting to die. No, you're more than welcome to go on my property and live. So the federal government needs to be saying, hey, who's going to fix these people's water when we no longer have water to live with?
Can I have a question to you? Did you just give verbal reports or did they give you?
We got written reports, but as a layperson, I didn't read them thoroughly. And I looked back, and the first month there was vinyl chloride in there. The second month it doesn't show it, but that's a month of drinking vinyl chloride. I spoke with a toxicologist in town, and I was having severe migraines. I'm a migraine sufferer, and as soon as I walked in my house, I'd pop a migraine. She said that was one of the 3 chemicals that were burned off on the explosion, and that it's a smell thing. If you're a migraine sufferer, it's going to trigger. She told us not to bathe in the water, not to wash the dishes in the water. So for 6 to 8 weeks, we went to my daughter's house and showered, but that's not feasible. I can't do that the rest of my life.
That's right.
We've not even gotten a bottle of water from the government, not
Yeah,
one
we've
bottle,
not.
and most of us are still drinking it, bathing it.
We put in a garden, a raised bed garden, and we're carrying water to water our plants because we won't water it with our own water.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
business, so they double whammied us. We have developed our property to be self-sufficient. We've been organic all of our life. And we tested for over the chart in arsenic. I immediately knew that we needed to get tested, our blood work, right after it happened. And nobody's even talking about blood work. And so I wanted to address up there at the federal settlement categories that it says medical exams. What about blood work? Is that considered part of the medical exams?
Yeah, I'm sure that it must be.
Testing for chemicals, though?
Language on this? We will make sure.
Okay, and then the second one I wanted to address is bucket one, and I know that that's not your wheelhouse, but I'm asking you to intervene on our behalf with the judge to extend the cutoff date. They are asking us to make an informed decision that they won't even tell us what the settlement amount is. Also, in addition, they're calling this, I don't know how to say this, I required certain things for me to go back in my house. I was out of my house for 5 months. I lived out of laundry baskets and we moved 12 times in that time. So I required the railroad certain things for me to get back in my house, and they did pay it, or they did reimburse it. We paid it, they reimbursed me. Now in this, they're calling it an offset. So whatever the settlement amount is, and whatever they reimbursed us for now, is being taken off of that settlement price, and that's not right. I wouldn't have had to decontaminate my house the way I did if it wasn't for them. I didn't need new furniture. I didn't need a new paint job in my house. I didn't need any of that prior to this. But now I'm being penalized, and their answers are, well, it's not fair to your neighbor. Your neighbor didn't get that. That neighbor had every opportunity to go to the railroad and get their needs met the same as I did. But I'm going to be penalized because my neighbor didn't go. So I'm asking you if you will intervene and ask the judge to push off that date to maybe September so they can process these claim forms and we can see where we're at and decide whether we want to opt in or opt out.
So we are not in that case at all. I don't even have standing to be in that case. But we are communicating with the lawyers in the class. So Aaron, let's please make sure that we follow up. Because what we can do is ask them to move the court to extend the cutoff date. Whether that can happen, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not part of that case. But I'll at least do that much. Even though I don't have the authority to be in court myself, I can talk with people who do. Yes, ma'am.
Question about blood, I noticed it says a comprehensive metabolic blood panel. It's the words they use. So.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Krista Graves. I'm 1.2 miles from the derailment site. I'm outside the city limits. So a lot of what's going on is really up in the air as to how it affects my family. The map has a little notch on it that covers a little bit of my road. We can't tell where. It's the house before me, the house after me. But I want to tell you, I have friends paying for 2 homes. I have friends living in circumstances that they're waiting to get ripped out from underneath them. People who can never go back to their home. And I don't believe my family should be in our home. But I wasn't allowed to relocate. I have a friend who developed male breast cancer 18 weeks after the derailment. Male breast cancer. In PA, I have friends who can't spend more than an hour or 2 at their property without suffering weeks of side effects. And if I spend time outside in this environment, which I love, that was was the entire, that's what I loved about being here, is the outdoors. I'm sick for weeks, with symptoms I don't usually have. A friend of mine and I made a list of 95 different symptoms that people have reported to us. 95 symptoms. We've talked to people from Times Beach, Missouri, and Love Canal, New York. Multiple people, not just one, who don't believe this town is habitable, but yet we're being told to stay here. Would you want to sell your home that you don't think is safe for you to another family to live there? Do you think you can even get fair market value? But then you come down to this is an affordable community, a uniquely affordable community. If we get fair market here, we can't find another safe, small town community that fair market will put us in the same situation in. This has touched every part of our life. The health fund is a nice idea, but Times Beach still has health funds out there that they don't know where they are or how to access them. They are losing people that left there when they were 7 to 13 years old in their 40s and 50s. I don't want that to be my children or my grandson that are stuck here, because what other option do we have? This isn't fair to any of my community members here. It's to the ones who think it's safe and don't want to acknowledge a problem. I get that. It looks green and pretty. It looks like it's okay. EPA lied to Times Beach. They did not tell them. They knew in the 70s that that town was contaminated, and they chose not to tell them. So why would we trust the EPA now, after everything that we have found, after all the pages of FOIA that I have gone through? There are probably 10,000 pages of FOIA. Why? If the history of them not being honest with the communities goes back to the 70s, and then we're finding it now, or misrepresenting the facts, why would we trust them now? Why wouldn't we look at history? They teach us history in school all our lives because it repeats itself. And now we have history telling us, hey, this is not safe. We can tell you it's not safe. This is what we experienced. And nobody wants to look at history now.
I want to remind everybody that the Attorney General does not run the EPA.
I understand that. The class action lawsuit for up to $70,000, I will sign off my entire family's right to sue in the future. For up to $70,000. That's not even enough to relocate my family. And then I sign off their rights for the future. That doesn't sound fair. That doesn't, they're young adults. They're not thinking too much into that. My grandson is 3. If you're telling us we can't sue, you're telling us there's a reason we should sue. Superfund exists for this purpose, to remove people from contaminated sites. I'm sure Superfund can be amended to remove those who see a risk and let those who want to stay, stay. But this isn't what is happening to my community, what I'm witnessing people go through. The trauma, the financial straits, families who were very solidly on their feet now barely able to buy groceries from week to week because they're paying for 2 homes. People living in campers that never wanted to. People living in rental homes that are waiting to get yanked out from underneath them. It's not. This isn't okay. And I don't know how much of this you've heard, but I can sit and talk to you for hours about what people are experiencing. And none of it's what I would expect from the United States. Well, what I would have expected prior to this. Now I've learned that it's what you should expect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Bob. We're right in the ground zero of this event. And we have a lot of issues, and everybody has valid issues here, and everybody's an individual. We all have our own risk tolerance as to how to handle this situation. And I don't disrespect anybody who's has been sick, or people who think everything's hunky-dory and don't have any reason to believe. But this agreement that the federal system has put together is a great agreement for the lawyers. It's a great agreement for the railroad. It's not a very good agreement That's just absolutely criminal, if you ask me. And I know you said you can't do anything about it, or you're not in that's not your area, but there's gotta be somebody, and I don't see the law firms and the class lawyers doing it because they're gonna get their quick 200 million and be down the road. And no disrespect to anything, that's what they're in business for. But we need protected here, and I don't feel like we're getting protected. I think they're just telling us we're being sold down the river, and we're gonna be hung out to dry. And if we don't get relief and be able to make a decision based on what they're willing to give us, because they just made, to make that decision this long. They told us at the settlement place that, well, you go in and you make your case and you do whatever the process is, but you're not going to know what the number is until after the opt-out date. And I know that's been said before, but to me, none of this matters because if we don't have the opportunity to make that decision, knowing all the facts, then you can come up with all the evidence you want about how bad things are and how people are getting sick, but if you settle, what recourse do you have? You have none. So, again, I don't know whether there's anybody you can talk to or anybody you can twist arms to, but I would encourage to put somebody on that bandwagon. Let's get this done so more people can make an intelligent decision.
My name is Tamara. I live 176 yards from the Drury Open site. Sorry. I guess mine is more of a question with the community health program and the facilitation plan. If the way I'm understanding our class action suit is if we don't opt in for the individual $10,000 they want to give us, then we only have, I believe, 2 years to file any additional medical issues we have. I don't know if that's correct, but that's how I'm understanding it. But like you said earlier, what if something happens in 20 years? So do those cover anything that would help us, like with medical expenses, if something like that were to happen down the road?
So, once again, I don't know about the private class action settlement. But my current understanding is that there is nothing in place as of this time that would be out there 15 years from now if something develops later.
So this would essentially help us if it was something that was like 10 or 15 years later.
Well, our lawsuit is one of the, I'm hoping to negotiate something like that.
Okay.
But, candidly, I'm a little irritated with the federal government moving so quickly on their side of this because they're settling the lion's share of these claims and leaving me with a little less leverage. But I appreciate what you're saying, and candidly, I would be concerned about the future too.
I mean, I guess my feelings on it right now is $10,000 isn't going to go anywhere for anyone. So personally, I'm not even going to attempt to consider that. So I said to my husband, I said, well, I guess we have to wait until we find one of those commercials on the TV in 20 years that say, if you were living in East Palestine on February 3rd, 2023, you may be entitled to compensation. Because that's the only way that anybody essentially, if something does happen to this community, is going to be able to afford any kind of medical care. So I was just hoping that maybe that would help us in the future. Thank you.
I promise I'll be quick this time. I just want to say something about the class action
action. I know a lot of people are bringing up the class action, and that's, again, not your wheelhouse, but I think you have friends in higher places than we do. So when they're talking about these issues with the class action, as soon as I knew we were screwed is when I called one of the bigwig attorneys, and I started saying, I don't understand why they would be trying to settle now with, what I told you, report him, and he said, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm not listening to your conspiracy theory about Norfolk Southern's attorneys. They have the residents' best interest in hand. I said to him, I'm gonna stop you right there. After the past year and a half I don't believe in a conspiracy theory. And again, for an attorney to even say that Norfolk's attorney has our best interest at hand, what's the purpose of hiring an attorney? If they don't have Norfolk Southern's best interest at hand, why would they be representing them? And just like you say that the EPA is, entertaining this settlement before everything's back, why does it say in our class action lawsuit we give up our right to sue the EPA? These attorneys told my mom, we can't sue the EPA anyways. Yeah, we can under CERCLA, and if we can't sue them anyways, why do you have it in there? I mean, ask yourself, why would I settle a lawsuit and then say you can't sue Mr. Yost? Unless you and I are in cahoots, or we did something together, I'm not gonna mention your name in that lawsuit. So I'm asking you to take politics out of this. These are human lives, these are our children's lives. I feel like, our political people, they're playing politics with people's lives. This isn't about being red or blue. Nobody checked, I'm sure that train didn't say, oh, this is a red area, let me crash here. The fact that we're not seeing Governor DeWine said, well, I didn't know that oxyvinyl was there and said that this train was not, close to even exploding. The experts didn't tell me that. Why were you relying on Norfolk Southern's experts? I think that, the common person, you go get a second opinion, especially if the person, you have them overseeing. Christina talked about the creeks. The first time they started cleaning them up, there's chemicals free flowing down the creek again. Do you know how the EPA found out about it? Because Christina risked her life in those creeks knowing that she's being exposed to those chemicals. Her and her boyfriend to videotape that. The EPA says that's unacceptable. As soon as we found out, we stopped. Where the hell's the oversight? If the EPA's been here on the ground since the start of this, how did Norfolk Southern just throw gravel over big burn pits full of chemicals and roll out of here? That's not me swiping a file off your table real quick. That took days. Like, we're desperate, and that's why we're asking you, even though we know it's not your specific job. I think we as a community are asking you to listen to us and to use those connections that you have to make sure our voices are heard, because our children's lives literally depend on
this. Let me respond to a couple of things. I'm not saying it's not in my wheelhouse or that ain't my job. I'm talking about what I have authority to do.
Right.
I also am talking about what knowledge I actually have. So in the private sector class action lawsuit, the lawyers have been allowed to conduct a lot of discovery. They know a lot of things that I don't know yet, because our lawsuit has been tied up and we haven't gotten any discovery yet. That's one of the things that bothers me about settling. I don't have discovery. So I want some information that I don't have right now. But that doesn't mean that the lawyers in class action bucket one don't have those things, don't have that information. They know candidly things that I don't know yet. The second thing I want to mention is that I have authority to bring certain claims. I don't have the authority to do everything. And I certainly don't control the EPA or the federal government. I am here because I'm seeking information.
Right.
I'm seeking your input. I'm listening because I want to be informed by what your lives look like. This is not a file in a cabinet somewhere for me. This is your lives and the people that aren't here It's about their lives. So I just want to reiterate, those three buckets are not artificial constructs. Those are different systems and different processes. And I only have a role in 1.5 of them, basically.
Thank you for coming.
When you do your discovery, will you please take into consideration the findings of our independent experts and the independent toxicologists who have been through similar situations? I understand the science team, but a lot of what they are saying doesn't go with common sense, it doesn't go with what we witnessed, and a lot of the test results and conclusions that are coming from the independent scientists and toxicologists are more in line with what makes sense and what we witnessed. And I know we can't force the class to do that, but as our representative that we elected, I would love if you would do that.
They're not doing residential testing, and that's what the independent is doing. And I just, for one, want to say I appreciate you coming here to listen to us, because you talk about discovery and these class action attorneys. They never came to ask us. You know, they never asked us anything. They did not collect our evidence, and I guarantee you, Unity Council has collected more evidence than those attorneys did. They didn't even bother to ask us for that, to see it, to listen to it, nothing. So, like I said, the offer stands. I know Krista is very involved and has a lot of information. I have a lot of information. I'm sure I've collected some of the information from people in this very room. But we would love to share that with you, the 3 Rivers Waterkeeper results, independent testing results, everything that we've uncovered, we would love to share with you.
Thank you.
So thank you for listening to us.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Lisa Mahoney, and I just want to say, again, thank you for coming here to hear us, because there's a lot that's happening here. As you can see, there's not as many people that should be here, but I'll speak for as many as I can. You want discovery? Come to my house, 246 Alice Street, East Palestine, Ohio. In my basement is my husband calls my science lab. I have furnace filters.
What's your address?
246 Alice Street. I have furnace filters. I have my car cabin filter. I have little jars of dirt. I have hundreds of bags of bloody nose tissues. I have water samples from my own faucet because nobody was coming to collect and discover. And as the PTSD sets in, this is what I can do for myself, is collect evidence so this never happens to another community again. We will have information. I want to thank you for what you do, and I would strongly recommend, as a state of Ohio, if you make sure that there is going to be provision for our water. I see the federal government says they'll monitor for 10 years. You can monitor it, but if you don't tell us it's no good, what good is the monitoring? I need to know when it's no good so I can get out, because I can't shower in it, bathe in it, cook in it, drink it, brush my teeth, etc. So please, not only monitor our water or fight for monitoring our water, but fight for the truth to be told when the water is bad. A friend of mine that digs wells told us it would be in our water table in 15 to 18 months. We are just now at about 15 months. So what happens, again, I know you have nothing to do with the settlement, but if it comes into our water table, this town is nothing, because you can't do anything. So please monitor the water. Every time it rains, I live very close to Sulphur Run that runs under the road, so they aren't even going in there to check. Every time it rains, there's a smell. Instant headaches, bloody noses. One time the CTH lady said to me, that's because you're just sensitive to this. And I looked at her and said, then you're telling me there is a this. And this monitor says there's a this, and there's a problem, and we need you to fight for us, the Ohio citizens that live in East Palestine, Ohio. Thank you.
I couldn't stay in that building. I was amazed that the city workers were even
Well,
on
they
duty.
posted on Facebook that they were sick, some of the workers in there, and it was the only place I smelled worse in my house, and we were told that there was an old pipe that ran into that tunnel, and that stuff was off-gassing and going directly in, and they had to cap it off. When I asked the city village government if that was true, and they didn't tell anyone, they told me to go get a public records request. The local government will not even tell us if they capped off their pipes so we can check our pipes.
I was finding poison in this town, and I know everybody else's places in this town. I've never spoke about this to anybody, and people probably wonder why I'm quiet. Well, I'm not going to be quiet anymore. I was so poisoned, I didn't even know where I was at for 10 days. I was in the hospital for 16 days, not knowing that I didn't know where I was at, because I was poisoned. I had blisters on my lips peeled like snake skin. I had headaches that were so bad, it was so horrible. I lost half my hair. There's just so many things I can't think of right now because I've been holding this in for so long, and all we've gotten is just lies and cover-up and corruption. It's very plain to see. I've never had my property tested. They tell the hospital, don't test anybody. I've been trying to get tested, and no one can test. No one can test. Please, I've got to. I've been living in a house since February 3rd, and I can't take it too much longer. It's been a real nightmare. And you know what? You got a box in the hen house. The box is going right there. This is all a big cover-up. We shouldn't be living here. It's horrible. I have headaches every day. My nerves are about shut. I've lost 50 pounds. I used to be really heavy. And now it's just been so horrible. And someone's going to do something about it. Because Norfolk Southern should not be in charge. They should not be in charge at all. They are the ones that caused this. And there's a big cover-up with the EPA. I know for a fact I've been studying this laying in my bed for months. I have chronic neck and back pain. I went into a hotel February 3rd in Chippewa. And, oh, excuse me. And I went through that smoke and to the microtown in Chippewa. I ended up so sick that next day. I ended up with COVID. And then on top of that, I was poisoned. I laid in bed. I hallucinated. I thought my mother was there. I thought Jesus was there. And then all of a sudden, when everything went gone, I don't know how to say it, but I kept quiet. And it's because the attorneys say you're not supposed to discuss this. So I haven't discussed it. But this is a real desperate problem for everybody. We are being poisoned. You can go downtown and get sick. I won't even ride by my tram with sites. It's just terrible. The smells and just everything going on at night. I don't know what they're doing at night, but they are doing something at night that shakes my whole house. It's about driving me nuts every freaking night. The whole house shakes. I don't know if there's something about the creek or what they're doing. But I tell you what, it's really bad here. And there is a big cover-up, and it's horrible. Someone needs to do something about it. I don't trust the government anymore. I used to love our government. I don't trust them. All I see is corruption. That's all I see. I'm sorry to be so upset, but I've kept this in so long. I just can't stand it anymore. And someone needs to do something about it. We should not be living here. We should not be living here. I just paid my house off last month, and I still can't get out of here. I tried to get out of here. I can't take a $135,000 loan. I'm 66
applaud when she said that she had tried to go to the hospital to get tested and were told no. Just a show of hands, how many people have had that happen personally to you?
I have a video of our one doctor in town where my brother walked in and asked them to write a prescription for vinyl chloride. And they said that the CDC sent down a memo and told all of our doctors not to test us for vinyl chloride. I have it on video.
This is Rachel from my office. Rachel, when we wrap up here, anybody that is willing to help me, I need to know who you talked to, what you asked, that kind of thing. So if you would give your contact information to Rachel, I would really like to know that. Perhaps there's some kind of rational explanation. But I'm struggling with trying to figure out what that would be.
There's a video.
So I'd like to look into that. Thank you.
They no doctor check. They no doctor do a blood test or urine test to check that.
And that's what we need is chemical testing, not just blood testing like Tamara said. They need to actually test us for heavy metals and other chemicals.
Who else has something they would like to share that we haven't heard yet?
I don't know if this really has to do with, because you're not really with the class action, but, okay, so, for instance, I tried to stand for 3 months, I'm borderline trained around it, I got sick. So, basically, my doctor said I was sick, I was on numerous medications, but basically, Norfolk's the one that said, go to the hotel and pay for it all. As numerous other people in town were relocated. Then all of a sudden, we get 1099, they want us to pay taxes on it. Okay, so then they're asking what we don't have to pay the taxes on. Now, if we get a settlement, they're gonna take all that money back from us. They relocated
Who
us.
said 99?
Norfolk did. Norfolk said, people with 1099. And mine was.
Compensation for a loss is not taxable.
Well, we did find that out.
So,
But, like, for instance, a lot of people were relocated, and then any kind of settlement we get, they want their money back. So basically, I was relocated because I was sick, couldn't be at home, per the doctors and Norfolk, but now you're going to take my money back too. So I had to pay for my home expenses, in addition to had to pay for my own hotel. So yeah, any money that I paid for, Norfolk reimbursed me, I stayed at the hotel, they want their money back. So I had to pay for my own stay, because I couldn't live here because of being sick. And this happened to a large amount of this community. Everybody that relocated got 1099s, so we don't have any taxes on what we have to pay back.
And we didn't get to choose how to spend it either. Like, they told us you have to stay in a hotel or Airbnb. They were paying $5,000 a month for my family to stay in an Airbnb. If I knew that was my money, I would have rented a house for a year.
Exactly. So yeah, like for instance, mine, stayed in for 3 months, and I was in the hotel for 8 months, $48,000 my money. Well, that's going to come right off the top of any settlement I get. In addition to, I had to pay for my own home expenses. In addition to, some people, the $70,000, they might have $68,000 at 99, so they're going to do nothing because of Norfolk wants the money back. So we could be faced with an emergency, right? Because Norfolk is supposedly helping us. But that's not really helping us if they take their money back. So basically, anybody that stayed at a hotel, B&B, whatever, is going back. They want their money back. But they didn't pay for us, really.
All the money they're saying they put in the community, are they gonna put that on national news that they took it back?
See, we're not hearing that.
We still need the state of emergency.
Yeah. All we're hearing is they're making it right.
We still need the declaration of emergency at a federal level. There are things that can be changed within assistance programs and all kinds of things that can be opened up if that declaration is declared. I have people that are paying for 2 homes, but they don't qualify for any assistance because they own 2 homes. Doesn't matter if one's So there's so many areas of that declaration.
Health insurance.
Is there anyone else?
At least enough money for my kid to bury me.
Good afternoon, Mr. Yost. My name is Lenny Glade, currently City Council for East Palestine. About a year and a half ago, I was just a normal citizen of East Palestine. Spent my life here. It's about 95% of everybody in this room is my family. Everything within 44413 is my home. So, I guess I took light in the fact that we have these wonderful technological devices here that I could stay up the last couple of nights when I heard the opportunity to come into our town. So my friends and my family in East Palestine, thank you all for gathering here today. We extend our deepest gratitude to the Attorney General for taking the time to visit our community and hear our concerns directly from us. Your presence here is a testament of the gravity of our situation, and it gives us hope that justice will be served. A year and a half ago, our lives were irreversibly changed by a tragic and devastating event. The train derailment that cast that so long, dark shadow over our small town, our home. What once was a collective and peaceful community has been transformed into a place of uncertainty, fear, and very many hardships. The consequences of that day that have disrupted every facet of our lives, from our health, our environment, to our livelihoods and sense of security. Despite the passage of time, many issues remain unresolved. Our community still suffers from the aftermath of the contamination, and we continue to face daily challenges. Families are living in homes they no longer feel safe in. Businesses are struggling to recover, and the health impacts of toxic exposure are being assessed daily and felt by many of our residents. This is not just about repairing a home that was broken apart. It's about restoring the trust and the safety into our community. We are here today because we believe in accountability. We believe that those responsible for disasters and that harm most life and the decisions made shortly afterwards must be held accountable for their actions and their immense suffering they have caused us. It is not enough to simply acknowledge the disaster. Concrete steps must be taken to ensure justice is served, that such a catastrophe has a lesser chance of happening again. Moreover, and I don't mean this is not your wheelhouse, but it is for the cameras in this room, we must hold our federal Environmental Protection Agency accountable at the end of this as well. The EPA is designed to provide security to the people and ensure that situations like these, they act in our best interest, not their own. However, we in East Palestine do not feel that way. The lack of timely and effective action from the EPA working in conjunction with Norfolk Southern has only exasperated our suffering uncertainty. Moving forward, it is imperative that the EPA fulfills its mandate to protect our health and our environment with the utmost diligence and transparency. We need to know that federal agencies will act decisively and responsibly to prevent such tragedies and mitigate their impacts when they do occur again. We seek a fair and just settlement that addresses the full extent of the damages inflicted upon our community. This includes comprehensive long-term health monitoring, support for the first responders and the most affected individuals, residents, the environmental cleanup to restore our land and the water to a safe state, and financial restitution for the economic losses we endure every day. 21 businesses sit empty since February 3rd, Mr. Yost. In a small town, those businesses create families. Those families are our future. If those small town businesses that we rely on every day are losing $1, I'm I'm afraid there's not going to be any businesses here. Without businesses, there's no families. Without families, there's no future. Attorney General, we are counting on your office to be the champion of our cause. We ask you to commit to thoroughly investigate this incident, to hold the responsible parties accountable, all of them, and ensure that justice will prevail. Your support is crucial in helping us navigate this difficult journey and restoring the faith of our community and the legal system and all federal institutions, all the alphabet groups. In closing, let me reiterate our heartfelt thanks to you and your whole team and everybody here today. Your willingness to listen to our residents, to understand our plight, and to take action on our behalf is priceless. Together we work towards a resolution that not only addresses the immediate needs of our community, but also paves the way for a safer, more secure future, not just for East Palestine, but for the rest of the world to stay on track. Thank you.
Running for mayor. We want justice, not money.
I want to thank all of you for coming out today. I'm not going to blow smoke at you or fake some sunshine. We are not in a great position here to force a better outcome. But here's my pledge to you. After listening to you today, we will go to federal court and object to the federal settlement and ask the judge to send it back. I'm especially concerned about the water supply, and there ought to be a continuing obligation by Norfolk to deal with whatever turns up downstream. And if everything's fine, then they shouldn't have any problem accepting some liability for what might turn up. The only reason not to is if they're concerned that they just want to get out of town before it gets worse, or before things migrate. The pain that I've heard and the anger, I understand. I am deeply sorry for what you're going through. I can't make it all better, but you have my commitment that we will use every tool in our toolbox to try to hold people accountable. And as I say, we will go to federal court and ask the judge to find that this settlement needs more work.
Thank you.
Thank you and have a great afternoon.